Okay, so each week, I'm sorry, I have had a cold all week and my voice is not great, so please bear with me. Each week I will be doing a live session at this time. The participation is optional, and if you decide to participate, you get credit for it. If you also answer the question that is listed on the syllabus in week 1, and there's a question each week. Some weeks they're similar, some weeks they're different. Or the live, that you can watch the recording. The sessions are something that are not done in every class, so don't expect this, but it's something that I find is very helpful in the first class. There will be slides each week and a recording each week. So let's get started. So this is our agenda for tonight. We're sort of a welcome. I'm going to give you some tips. I'm going to give you some things on time management, and we're going to talk a little bit about research. So welcome to your MBA program. And these are just sort of some cliches I put together to hopefully cheer you on a little bit. You can do this. There are so many people who have done it. You can do it. It's all about your mindset. If you keep an open mind, if you're open to learning, it's going to be a much better experience for you. It is easier to keep up with the work than catch up with the work. There's new work to get done every single week. So every week there's participation and every week there's assignments. When you get into some other classes, there will be assignments plus team assignments. So the better you are at keeping up and managing your time, which is why I'm going to do a time management section tonight, the easier it's going to be for you. If you are confused right now, it's okay. When I teach this class on campus, I tell people at the end of the first night, if I haven't totally confused you, I haven't done my job. It's overwhelming. It's understandable if you're confused. It's understandable if you're not sure if you're doing the right things. The most important thing I can tell you is anytime you have a question, ask. Don't agonize over it. Don't waste your time trying to figure it out. Ask. I am online every single day. Now, the time of day may vary, so it's rarely going to be much more than about 24 hours from the time you might post a question to the time you hear from me. If by chance you have to have an answer immediately, you have my phone numbers. You can also email me at my business email address. That goes right to my phone, so I see that I actually do get my Phoenix mail to my phone as well. But if you have to, I don't go into class usually from my phone, but please ask if you need information. The more you contribute, the more you learn. The more you participate in class, the more you share things with others, the more you'll take out of it. It's one of those things of, garbage in, garbage out. The more you participate, the more you'll learn. And don't take shortcuts. It might help you in school to take a few shortcuts, but the reality is that it won't help you in your job. Some of you are doing this to move up in your career. Some of you are doing it for self-fulfillment. But if you're doing it for your job, if you can't prove the value of your degree when you're on the job, your degree has no value. So don't take those shortcuts. Learn everything that you can. All right, so here's some tips for you. This is a critical component of keeping up. Participate early in the week. And I know lots of you have been in. We're in Tuesday and Wednesday. I haven't been in since this morning, but participate early in the week. I don't know where most of you live. I live in Florida. We have lots of storms here and lots of times when I lose power. You never know what weather's going to bring. Some of you could be in the Northeast and have lots of snow right now. So weather can be a factor. Your friends can be a factor. Your job could say you have to do something on the weekend at the last minute, and if you left all your work to do for the weekend, you won't get it done. You could be sick. I have not felt well this week at all, and I have had a horrible week with all the things I had to do, and I wasn't feeling well, so I was sort of dragging around all week. Your computer, technology, computers break. Internet access gets lost. All kinds of technical issues can happen. And your family. Your family, for many of us, is our priority. And, if our family needs us, you're not going to get the schoolwork done. So the more you can do the beginning of the week, the less hassle and stress you'll have at the end of the week. Do not wait until Saturday to start posting. You have to post for 3 days, and if you choose Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you also have to get the assignments done at that same time. I would do postings in the beginning of the week and assignment at the end of the week. So some things that you ought to make sure that you read. Announcements that I post, emails that I send, or class messages that I send. There's grading rubrics that can help you with figuring out what's required for different assignments. For worksheets, there are not grading rubrics, but for papers and presentations, there are. And all that stuff I posted in week 1 required, that's all housekeeping stuff, like tips and plagiarism, all those things that many of you responded to. I've read it. I hope you didn't just respond that you read it. I hope you really did, because there's so much information in there that can help you. Okay, so on your postings, and this is, I'm really talking about the content postings. There's 4 threads this week that are really not required to have citations and references. The one on using Wikipedia, the plane ride, can't remember the other 2. But there's 4 postings this week that are really getting to know you, that are really just to really get to know you. So once you get past those 4, and by tomorrow you ought to be past those 4, any content posting should have a citation and reference. Use the textbook at minimum. Google is wonderful and horrible. If you use Google, and I sort of use Google as a generic word for any search engine. Page 1 of Google, depending upon what you type in, you immediately get into blogs and website selling services. Not good sources. Blogs are not acceptable. Website selling services aren't acceptable. Blogs are just somebody's opinion, and unless you know the blog is by an expert, you don't want to use it. Site selling services have good information about their products, not about the topic that you're looking for. Use the textbook and business journal articles. I don't require peer review articles in this class. Use business journal articles.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yes.
On the with regards to the citations, I haven't used citations in quite a few years. So, on the homework and in the postings that we do you want us to do in paragraph citations with page numbers?
Page numbers are only required if it's a direct quote. If it's not a direct quote, you don't need page numbers. And I have some information coming up on citations and references. And if you still have more questions after I do that slide, then ask then again, okay?
All right, thank you.
It's important at the graduate level that you go on reporting. That you go beyond reporting and quoting. You should be applying and analyzing information. You want to go beyond the obvious, sharing insights, developing conclusions. And you want to make sure all of your responses are substantive. Again, not important in those first 4 discussion areas, but once we get into content, it is important. All right, so blogs, Wikipedia, dictionaries, encyclopedias, site selling services, and cheat sites should not be used. If you wouldn't use the source as a basis for getting a raise or promotion, don't use it for class. I use Wikipedia all the time, but I use it for my personal information because I just want to find out something in my own general knowledge, but I would never use it for business. Dictionaries and encyclopedias are sources, but not really for graduate level work. Use paragraphs in white space. Please don't write just one long paragraph in your postings. That is very hard to read. So it's better to write in short paragraphs and have white space between paragraphs. If you have an opinion or an experience, try to match that with a source. Be sure citations and references match. If you list something as a reference, it must be cited in the paper or in the posting. And if you start the citation with the name of the author, the reference has to be the same way. They have to match. And whenever you're posting, focus on content rather than being on conversational. And conversational tends to be iMessages. I agree with you. I had that same experience. Oh, I think that's wonderful. I believe this is important. That's conversational. You want to be focused on content. Some tips on being substantive. You want to provide depth and details, examples and explanations, insights and information. You want to be able to compare and contrast information, and you want to be able to use application and analysis skills. You will very often see feedback from me saying you need more application analysis, you need more depth and details, you need more insights. These are the higher level thinking skills that we want from graduate students. Okay, here's the slide on references and citations that I mentioned. So the textbook citation is Knickie and Williams, 2016. You need both authors in every citation. You need both authors in every citation. If there are two authors, they both have to be there. And you only add the page paragraph number for quotes. The reference for the textbook is Knickie A and Williams BK, publication date. And let me just say something about that. You always use a publication date, not a download date. Management of Practical Edition, Introduction, 7th edition, New York, McGraw-Hill. That is your standard reference format for the textbook. List your references alphabetically. Now, if by chance this book was written by Williams and Knickie, you wouldn't change the reference to Knickie and Williams. It's alphabetical by the first name on the textbook. The order of the authors is important. That is who contributed the most, just who is the first author. Your reference list is alphabetical. It is not numbered. And if there is no publication date, you use N period D period, which stands for no date. You never use the download date instead of a publication date. You never use a download date instead of a publication date. All right, so remember, participation has to be substantive. The university requirement is 8 substantive postings over 3 days. Participating in this session and responding to the question about the session, your requirement becomes 6 days, 6 postings rather, and that is 5 plus the response to this question, the question about the session, and 3 days of postings does not change. You may have already seen these flags on your postings. As soon as I read it, I mark it with an S, which means it's substantive and it counts towards your requirement, or a U, meaning it's not substantive and doesn't count for your points. Already mentioned about being academic versus conversational. All right, so I've got a screenshot here. And if you want to see how you're doing, you can go into Class Home, and what I go to is the list of all the class members. I go to my own name, and then it's by person. And then on the next, you can see there's S flags and 1 U flag. You and I are the only ones who see that flag. Nobody else in the class knows how you're doing. So you've got the S and the U, which tells you this was good, it earned points, or a U. If you got 1 or 2 lines and it doesn't really add any value to the discussion, you'll get a U. As the class progresses, I will only use the U flag if I think you thought it would count and it doesn't. This week I've put a U anytime it doesn't count. And the reason you get that right away is so that you can see, oh my God, I posted 3 times, but only two of my postings counted. That's the purpose of the S and the U flag, so you can quickly see how you're doing. Initial participation posting should be about 250 words. If you have citation and references, that's usually about 20 words. You'll see there is a count at the bottom of a posting, tells you how many words you have. All you do is quote. you are not demonstrating that that you understand the concepts in the course. You demonstrate that you could find a quote about a topic. If you have a paper, a word count guideline is provided. It has been my experience that people who are significantly below the word count really haven't done a good job on the paper. It's a good guideline. 250 words is a good guideline for a substantive initial response to a question. Follow-up postings, it's also best to use a citation and a reference, and you should have at least 100 words, which is not very much. Postings and papers are rarely comprehensive with less words. So you want to be comprehensive, and I've got that guideline for you. If you didn't write it, you got to cite it. Cutting and pasting something has to have a citation. Changing only a few words has to have a citation. Taking information from a source has to have a citation. Paraphrasing, summarizing, quoting has to have a citation. And as I said before, quoting is not a grad level skill. Anytime you get something from a source, cite it. There was a question this week about a percentage that is the right percentage for plagiarism report. There's no such thing because it depends what the report says. If it gives me a sentence here, a sentence there, and it's from 10 different sources cited correctly, 20% is fine. If there's an entire section that is totally quoted from some other source and doesn't have any citation, that's a problem. So 20% is not a magic number, although I have heard many instructors say it is. It is not. What's most important is you know where you got it from. If you got it from a source, cite it. And your paper should have original writing as much as it has citing. Start posting in the content questions. I would make sure you start that by tomorrow because you have to have 2 of those by the end of the week. And those are shifting mindset, exceptional manager, management roles, management theory. And those are the ones that I'm looking for a citation and a reference and about 250 words. And you need 2 of them for the week. Follow the word count guidelines, 250, 100 for initial and follow-up. And do not rely on your experience or opinion. You need to be using sources at the graduate level. Your assignment, you have to download the worksheet. You're going to follow the word count guidelines. You're going to include citations and references. You're going to summarize the meaning of concepts, and you're going to answer questions. So here's what your assignment looks like. I took a screenshot of it. What you want to do is on the right-hand side, that's usually where your materials are that you need to look at for doing an assignment. What you're going to be taking is the worksheet, Applying Management Concepts for Success. On the left-hand side, I highlighted some things that you have to do. And now I've sort of mocked up using filler text language. Your first question is the definition of management. So I started off with management is defined as, and then I put my citation, Kanicki and Williams, and you can see later on, I bolded the citation just so that you can see what it looks like. And then the rest is filler language. That's column 1. Column 2, or column 1 is the concept. That's already filled in. So the first one is definition of management. Then it says to summarize with 50 to 75 words what it means. Any citations you would put in the next column. The black column are the ones that are already in the worksheet. How would you apply the definition of management to better perform in your job? And these responses are supposed to be 50 to 75 words. And you can see I've put an answer down here and I have 1 citation in there. So that's what it looks like. And then I have another screenshot that shows you how I did the reference page for it. Now, I'm going to read you from the worksheet. The next concept you're going to do is the 4 functions of management, which I know some of you have already answered a question that includes the 4 functions, which is leading, controlling, managing, and I always leave out one, and it's always a different one. Planning. the differences among the 4 levels of management, and it says note pyramid. So there are 4 levels of management. There's highest level of management, there's middle management, there's supervisor, and there might be team leader. Skills exceptional managers need. I just said there's a discussion question on exceptional management. Roles that managers play, differences between a fixed and growth mindset, and your final category is management theory. Identify 3 theories. So that's what you're going to do. That's your one assignment for this week. It's a worksheet, relatively easy to do. Any questions about the worksheet for this week? Okay, I'm going to go on. All right, so now time management. I think this is a big issue. One of the things that you really have to be aware of, and this can sometimes be a challenge, especially if anyone graduated from University of Phoenix for their undergraduate degree or recently graduated from another school. An MBA or any graduate program is not the next class. It is a totally different program with different expectations, different requirements, and they're much more challenging. Only about 25% of the population has a graduate degree, and there's a reason for it. It's harder to get. So think, are you managing time or is time managing you?
Turn off the TV and let me use the computer in here.
Somebody's microphone is on and I'm getting a lot of background. So when we look at what we're doing, there are things that are important and there are things that are urgent. So if things are important but not urgent, that's quality time. If it's urgent and important, we're probably doing firefighting. And I'm sure you all work with people who are pyromaniacs who set fires so they can put them out. If it's not urgent or important, you're wasting your time. If it's urgent but not important, it's a distraction. So you need to look at where you're spending most of your time. You need to look at where you're spending most of your time. That's going to help you to manage your time better.
You have earphones?
We still got somebody's microphone on. Why is time management important? The better you manage time, the less stress you'll have. The more balanced your life will be. You'll do a much better job of accomplishing your goals, and you'll increase productivity. These are some of the bad behaviors that we have. The procrastinator puts everything off to the last minute. The person who's perpetually late and they're always chasing the clock. The perfectionist who's always reworking and hesitating to delegate. Somebody who is perplexed by distractions, often multitasking. If you tell me you're a great multitasker, I'm going to tell you that you are doing more than one thing badly at a time. We cannot multitask. We can have simultaneous projects that we work on one project, stop, work on
Jasmine.
Stop and go to the next project. Multitasking is a bad thing. If you're on the phone and sending an email at the same time, one is wrong. You've made a mistake somewhere. And the pleaser, somebody who's always being dishonest about their time.
No, but I really
Doing more than one thing badly at a time is my definition of multitasking. We really can't do it. I'm sorry, but I have to ask again, whoever has their microphone on, please turn it off. If you say you'll be there in a minute, how long will you really be? Most of us say, oh, just a sec, I'll be there in a minute, I'll be there in 5 minutes. That's not how long we're going to be, and we know it, but we still use those phrases all the time. What's wasting your time? You're spending too much time on tasks that aren't critical or important. You didn't set task deadlines. The more you can set deadlines, the more effectively you're going to meet the deadlines. Record your tasks. Note your interruptions. And if you're finding that all of your interruptions are from the same person or the same situation, that's a time management thing to figure out how to minimize those interruptions. and figure out what are the priorities that you have to work on. Priority by definition is not more than one thing. And yet most of us have 3 or 4 priorities, which makes no sense. This is a grid that was created, I thought, by a company that I worked for in Massachusetts. It turns out they didn't create it, they just used it all the time. It's about doing right things right, which is in the upper right corner. You want to always be doing right things right. It's obvious that we don't want to be doing wrong things wrong, but the other two can be a little confusing. Are you doing the right things and doing them the wrong way? Or are you doing the wrong things and doing it really well? The one that's more of a problem is wrong things right, because we think we're doing a good job, but we're working on the wrong things, and that's a time management issue. Right things wrong means nobody trained us to do it the right way. Now, here's the interesting thing. Most of us spend only about 80% of our time doing right things right, which means about 1 day a week, we're doing right things wrong things wrong, or wrong things right. Think about if you had a whole day back because you were doing right things right. And that is a way to manage your time better. I love this quote from Peter Drucker, who's a management consultant. There's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. Okay, so what's on your to-do list? School, family, work, friends, leisure activities. I'm sure you've all got something, and there may even be some other things on there. Exercise. Here's the thing you got to be thinking about now. What's on your not to-do list? There are things that as you take on this new responsibility, you probably have to stop doing. There will be things you will continue to do, which probably are around your work and your family and your health. And then there are some things you may have to start doing that relate to going back to school. When I worked on my MBA, I went to a school that I went to classes 4 nights a week from 5 to 10 every night. I was taking 4 classes at a time, 2 classes on Monday and Wednesday, 2 classes on Tuesday and Thursday. I was working a full-time job. I spent all day Saturday studying and all day Sunday working with my team. I had to stop doing a lot of things that were important to me in order to maintain that schedule. But I was determined that I was going to get my MBA in 2 years while working full-time, and I did it. But I stopped doing a lot of things. Now, this may not seem like a big deal to you, but to me it is. I stopped going to movies. I stopped reading books. I'm a big reader, and I could go to 3 movies in a weekend, and I didn't do it at all for 2 years. So you have to think about what it is that you're going to give up because you're taking on such a huge new undertaking. Here's some of my time management tips. Break things into smaller pieces. Determine what you're going to do every day. Establish milestones. You know, if it were me, I would get most of my postings done on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That gets me my 3 days. Prioritize and focus. And if somebody hasn't given you the priorities, ask for them. Set time limits and deadlines. You know, you could do this. If you break it into smaller pieces, you could do 1 hour a night or 1 hour at lunch a day, and then you can take a day off at the weekend. You don't have to work all weekend. Avoid quicksand and time thieves. Understand what your time wasters are. Sometimes it's people, sometimes it's other things that you get yourself involved in. I know sometimes I can go looking for something on the internet and 3 hours later I've gotten nothing done and I've been searching the internet for something all that time. Time traps, things that suck you in that you don't even realize sometimes you're doing it. You have to recognize what those are and manage those. This is probably one of the most important things. Do the things that are hardest for you to do first. I know it's a lot better if you can have a checklist and check off a whole bunch of stuff that you got done, but those are the trivial many. Focus on the things that are hardest first, because that will get you to manage your time better and get things done more effectively. Focus on objectives rather than activities, and focus on the critical few over the trivial many. And the critical few are the tough things. Use uncommon sense. I know most people say common sense, but I don't think common sense is common. Question activities that you're doing. Figure out which ones you really need to do. Undercommit and over-deliver. And stop worrying about perfection. Do it as good a job as you can do, and then submit it. If you agonize over a perfection, you'll never get anything done. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember, Dr. Pepper used to have, excuse me, a commercial that you were supposed to drink Dr. Pepper at 10, 2, and 4. So what I'm saying is 10, 2, and 4 could be the times that you actually say on your voicemail, I return calls at 10, 2, and 4. How many times has somebody called you and you haven't called them back in 5 minutes, so then they text you because you didn't call them, or they send an email and they text you because you didn't respond. If you tell people when you'll return messages, they'll leave you alone most of the time. Establish do not disturb time. If you have young kids, it's got to be after they go to bed. Consolidate your phone and email time. That's part of the 10, 2, and 4 strategy. And take breaks. If you try to stay at a computer for more than an hour, your mind starts going. Take breaks. Get up, get some water, do some exercise. Try to implement one change today and see how that works for you. And remember, someone else's failure to plan is not your emergency. Don't let somebody put a monkey on your back because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. Tips for class: read all announcements, read emails, check the questions thread. You may have the same questions as somebody else does. There is a questions thread each week. It's at the bottom of the page, right above assignments. It says questions and concerns. Ask them there. Do not wait until Monday to complete all classwork. You will not get it all done. And you won't get in your 3 days. Definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And if you just keep managing your time the same way you always did, nothing's going to happen differently. Now, I've put a video in here that I'm not going to show you, but this is a hyperlink to a video. It's on YouTube, and I suggest you watch it. It's about 5 minutes long, and it's from Stephen Covey's strategy for doing the tough stuff first, and I think you'll get a lot out of the video. I sent the slides earlier today, and the hyperlink is in there, so take a few minutes and watch that. And so, time for questions. It's better to ask than to lose points. Okay, I am going to try and get back. I always get, let's see if I can get back into. Okay, there's where I want to be. All right, so I can see people who joined. Oh, it looks like we still have the same people. Okay, so questions. You can either type them down here in the message area or put on your microphone to ask a question.
I actually do have a question regarding the worksheet that you have. Yes. I had asked the question online as well as far as the word count. I'm finding that I am having quite a few of them that are actually 100 plus words. Do you want me to cone those down?
Cone them down a little bit, but as long as you still have the key points in there. You know,
okay.
100 words is not bad. It's when you have a 1,000-word paper and somebody submits 2,000 words that I go crazy, because that's now like 2 papers to grade.
And then there's a few of these. I believe you said in the requirements that you wanted us to basically summarize in our own words as much as possible and not utilize quotes. Okay, all right.
Yes.
Just want to verify that. Thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Now's the time to ask. I couldn't have been that perfectly clear for everything. It's got to be something that you don't understand. Well, if there are no other questions, I'm going to stop the recording.